She said my name wrong every single time, but she still came back, every single day. That was the part that got him. Not the police lights, not the phone call at 4:47 in the morning. Not even the sight of her, 7 years old, sitting in the snow outside a Tim Hortons off the Trans-Canada, her boots on the wrong feet, and a paper cup of hot chocolate she'd somehow talked a trucker into buying her, clutched between both hands like it was the only warm thing left in the world. It was that detail, later, after everything. When Theo Kessler's own lawyer looked across the table at him and said, "She asked about you every day." And Theo had to look away because he was not the kind of man who cried in front of lawyers. He was not supposed to be the kind of man who stopped at all. It was February, which in northern Ontario means the wind comes off the lake, like it has a personal grudge. Theo Kessler had been driving for 6 hours. He had a meeting in Thunder Bay at 9 a.m., a meeting that had taken 11 months to arrange, and he had not stopped since Sudbury, except once for gas. He did not stop for people. He did not stop for causes. He did not stop for anything that wasn't already on his schedule. His driver, a quiet man named Pavel who had worked for him for 9 years and knew better than to speak unless spoken to, slowed as they came up on the rest stop. "Keep going," Theo said without looking up from his phone. Pavel slowed further. Theo looked up. There was a little girl standing at the edge of the parking lot. She was not crying. That was the thing. She was not crying. She was just standing there in the cone of a single overhead light, her coat unzipped, looking at the highway like she was trying to figure out which direction she needed to go. 7 years old, maybe 8, boots on the wrong feet. "Stop the car," Theo said. Pavel stopped. Theo Kessler had not built what he built by being sentimental. He had not survived what he survived by trusting strangers, or making impulsive decisions, or getting involved in things that had nothing to do with him. There were men in 3 provinces who owed him money, and men in 2 more who owed him something worse than money, and exactly none of them would have believed it if you told them that on a frozen Tuesday in February, their boss got out of a black SUV at a highway rest stop and walked toward a child he didn't know. He walked toward her anyway. She looked up when she heard his footsteps, didn't flinch, didn't back away, just looked at him the way kids sometimes look at adults, with that flat, measuring assessment that children are better at than anyone gives them credit for. "You lost?" he said. "No," she said. "I know where I am. I just don't know how to get back." He crouched down so he wasn't towering over her. The wind came off the tree line and hit the back of his neck. "Where's back?" She thought about it. "My aunt's house, in Greenstone." Greenstone was 2 hours east. "How'd you get here?" "My dad," she said. And then something shifted in her face, just slightly, just for a moment, like a door closing. "He forgot." Theo looked at her. "He forgot what?" "Me," she said simply. "He forgot me." If you want to know about Theo Kessler, and after everything that came out in the papers, a lot of people said they did. Here is what the papers got wrong. They made him sound like a monster. And here is what they also got wrong. They made him sound like a hero. He was neither. He was a man who had grown up in a small house in Hamilton with a mother who worked 2 jobs and a father who worked none, who had figured out very early that the world sorted itself into people who took and people who got taken from, and had made a decision, at 16, that he would be neither, that he would be the one who decided. It had worked, mostly. The cost of it was something he didn't examine too closely. He had a daughter once. He didn't talk about that. The people who worked for him knew not to bring it up. Her name had been Clara. She would have been 9 this year. He didn't think about that when he looked at this little girl in the parking lot. He told himself he didn't. "What's your name?" he said. "Penny," she said. "Penelope Ann Bryce. My aunt makes me say the whole thing so I don't forget it." "Smart aunt," he said. "My name is Theo." She looked at his car. "Is that a Cadillac?" "It is." She looked back at him. "My friend Tyler's dad has a Cadillac. He's not nice. I'm not always nice either," he said. She considered this. "Okay," she said, like it was an acceptable answer, like honesty was something she'd learned to appreciate. "Are you going to call someone?" "Yes," he said. "Who should I call?" "My aunt," she said. "Her name is June. June Bryce. She's probably worried." A pause. "She's going to cry. She cries when she's worried. It's embarrassing." "It's not embarrassing," Theo said. Penny looked at him sideways. "You don't know her." He almost smiled. It had been a long time since anything had almost made him smile that wasn't planned. He stood up and turned to Pavel. Get her something from inside, something warm, and find a blanket. He looked back at Penny. Can you tell me your aunt's phone number? She could. She recited it from memory, without hesitating, in the particular careful way of a child who has been drilled on something important. Her aunt had made her learn it. Her aunt, he would come to understand, had spent the last 3 years making sure Penny Bryce knew every emergency fact about herself, because her aunt had understood, long before tonight, that the situation with Penny's father was not stable. He called the number. It rang once. Hello? The voice on the other end was thick with the kind of fear that's been sitting for hours. Hello? Who is this? My name is Theo. I'm at a rest stop on the 17, east of Nipigon. I have a little girl here named Penelope Ann Bryce, who says you're her aunt. Silence. Then a sound that wasn't quite a sob and wasn't quite a gasp, somewhere in between. She's okay, he said before she could ask. She's cold and she's been here a while, but she's okay. She's standing right next to me. He held the phone out. Penny took it. Hi, Aunt June, she said, in the patient voice of someone who has been through a lot and learned to stay calm so the adults around her don't fall apart. I'm okay, don't cry. A pause. I know, I'm okay. She handed the phone back. Her eyes were dry. His chest did something he didn't have a name for. Pavel came back with a hot chocolate and a foil emergency blanket that had been in the back of the SUV since the winter before. Penny accepted both with the same gravity she seemed to accept everything, like she'd been taught that gratitude should be real or not at all, and she was taking a moment to make sure hers was. Thank you, she said to Pavel and then to Theo. He's nicer than you. He's been doing it longer, Theo said. Pavel, who had not smiled in Theo's presence in 9 years, made a sound that was not quite a laugh. They waited inside the SUV with the heat running. Theo sat across from Penny and told Pavel to watch the lot. He'd noticed when he first pulled in, a dark car, older model Chrysler. No plates he could read from this distance, parked facing the wrong way near the tree line. It hadn't moved. He didn't like things that didn't move. He didn't say any of this to Penny. Does your dad forget a lot? He asked, because he needed to understand the shape of what he was dealing with. She wrapped the blanket tighter. He doesn't mean to, she said. He gets mixed up sometimes. His brain. She tapped the side of her head. He says it like a radio that can't find the station. Sometimes he hears it fine. Sometimes it's just noise. That sounds hard. For him, she said. Mostly for him. Theo looked at her. 8 years old, and she had already learned to set her own grief aside to save room for someone else's. He recognized that. He recognized it in the particular terrible way of someone who had learned the same thing and spent years unlearning it. What about for you? He said. She was quiet for a moment. The snow was picking up outside, and the light from the rest stop's single lamp threw orange shapes across the car's dark windows. Sometimes, she said, I just want someone to not forget. She didn't say it like a complaint. She said it like a fact she had accepted and was simply reporting. And that was the thing that reached through all the armor Theo Kessler had spent 20 years building, found the one gap he hadn't known was there, and sat down in it like it had always belonged there. He didn't say anything. She didn't seem to need him to. June Bryce arrived at 2:14 in the morning. She drove a 12-year-old Subaru Outback with a crack in the windshield and a stick-figure family on the rear window where someone had started peeling off one of the figures. Theo noticed these things. He noticed everything. She came out of the car at a run, and Penny met her halfway across the parking lot with the slightly exasperated expression of someone who loves Atus very much and also finds them exhausting. June Bryce dropped to her knees in the snow and held Penny with the particular fierceness of someone who has been afraid for a long time and is finally allowed to stop. She was crying. She had told Penny she would. Penny patted her back. Theo stood back by the SUV and watched. Pavel stood a respectful distance further back and watched him watch. When June finally stood up, red-eyed, snow on her knees, one hand still holding Penny's like she wasn't ready to let go, she looked across the lot at Theo. You called, she said. She gave me your number, he said. June Bryce walked toward him. She was not a tall woman, and she had the look of someone who ran on 4 hours of sleep and a level of determination that had stopped having an off switch years ago. She stopped a few feet away and looked at him directly. "Thank you," she said. "I don't know who you are, but thank you." "Theo," he said. "That's enough." She seemed to understand that he wasn't going to give her more. "We've been trying," she said, quieter. "With Brendan, with her dad. He's not bad. He just—" "I know," he said. And he did. He knew, and he didn't need her to justify it to him or to herself. She nodded once, quickly. Then, "Can I ask, why did you stop?" He looked past her at Penny, who was standing in the parking lot with her hot chocolate, examining the crack in the Subaru's windshield with the focused interest of an engineer. "She wasn't crying," he said. June Bryce looked at him like she understood exactly what he meant. He should have left. He knows that now. He should have made sure they got on the road safely, gotten back in the car, continued to Thunder Bay, had his 9 a.m. meeting, and never thought about Penelope Ann Bryce again. He did not leave. The dark Chrysler near the tree line still hadn't moved, and one of Theo's rules, one of the few that had kept him alive this long, was that you never ignored the thing that didn't move. He kept June talking while Pavel circled the lot quietly. He asked about the drive, about the road conditions, about whether she'd eaten anything. He asked about Greenstone. He watched her answer and watched the Chrysler in his peripheral vision and waited. Pavel came back to his side and leaned in close. "2 men," he said quietly. "They've been watching the girl." Theo's expression didn't change. "You know them?" Pavel asked. "No," he said. "But I know what they are." He thought about this. He thought about Brendan Bryce, Penny's father, who forgot things, who had a condition that made his brain lose the signal. He thought about the kind of person who would follow a man like that, who would use a man like that. He thought about Penny saying, "Sometimes I just want someone to not forget." "Go get the plate," he said to Pavel. "Be obvious about it." Pavel understood. He walked directly toward the Chrysler, slow enough that they could see him coming, slow enough that they had time to decide whether to stay or go. He took out his phone and held it up. The Chrysler started its engine. It pulled out of the lot and onto the highway, heading west, and was gone. Theo watched it go. Then he took out his own phone and made a call. "I need a name off a plate," he said when someone answered. He read off the number Pavel had given him. "And I need to know if there's anything open on a Brendan Bryce, BRYCE, Greenstone area." He listened for a long time. By the time he hung up, June Bryce was looking at him with the careful expression of someone who has started to understand that the man who stopped to help her niece is not exactly what he appears to be, and is deciding whether or not that matters. "Who are you?" she said. "Someone who can make this stop," he said. "Make what stop?" He looked at her steadily. Whatever they're holding over Brendan, her face changed. She knew. She had known. She had known for months. He could see it. The particular exhaustion of someone who has been carrying a fear alone because they didn't know who to tell, because the people you're supposed to tell are sometimes the people you can't trust. She had been protecting Penny the only way she knew how, and it hadn't been enough, and she knew that too. "He owes someone money," she said. "He borrowed from the wrong people when things got bad, when his diagnosis came and he couldn't work." She stopped. "I didn't know it was this. I didn't know they were watching your niece," Theo said, plainly. Not gently because she didn't need gentle. She needed to understand. They were making a point. June put her hand over her mouth. "How much?" he said. She told him. He nodded once. "I'm going to take care of it," he said. "You can't just—" "I can," he said. And the way he said it left no room for argument. Not because he was threatening her. He wasn't. Because he was stating a fact. Because in the world he moved through, this was not a large problem. It was a medium problem. It was, in fact, the kind of problem that could be resolved before his 9 a.m. meeting if he made the right calls tonight. June stared at him. "Why would you do that?" He didn't answer right away. Penny had come to stand beside her aunt. She was holding the empty hot chocolate cup in one hand and looking up at him. She had snow in her hair. "You stopped," she said. "I stopped," he agreed. "Other cars didn't." "No," he said. "Other cars didn't." She looked at him with that flat, measuring assessment of hers. "Are you going to forget too?" she said. "After you leave?" He looked at her. He thought about Clara. He thought about what it cost him, every year, to remember. He thought about what it had cost him, every year, to think he had made the right choice, building walls, staying behind them, and how this child standing in the parking lot in the wrong boots had somehow walked straight through every single one in 45 minutes without even trying. "No," he said, "I'm not going to forget." She nodded once, the way she'd nodded at everything, like she was filing it away, deciding whether to believe it, reserving judgment. "Okay," she said, and she took her aunt's hand and went back to the car. He made 4 calls on the drive to Thunder Bay. He had 2 conversations that were not recorded anywhere. He transferred a sum of money that his accountant would categorize under a heading that did not reflect its true purpose. By the time the sun came up over Lake Superior, Brendan Bryce's debt was gone. The men in the Chrysler received a message, not from Theo directly, because Theo did not communicate directly with people like that, but through the appropriate channels, that Brendan Bryce was no longer a person of interest, that the file, such as it was closed, that any further attention paid to the Bryce family would be considered a statement of intent. They did not pay further attention. Theo Kessler had his 9 a.m. meeting, which went well. He ate breakfast afterward at a place on the waterfront that made good eggs, and he sat at the window and watched the lake and didn't look at his phone. He thought about a little girl in the wrong boots who had memorized her aunt's phone number because someone had made sure she had it. He thought about the way she'd said, "Sometimes I just want someone to not forget." He thought about Clara. He let himself think about Clara. He sat there for a long time. He didn't expect to hear from them again. He hadn't given June his number. It wasn't his habit, and it wasn't wise. He'd done what he'd done, and it was finished, and that was the way these things worked. 3 months later, his assistant brought him an envelope. Inside was a drawing, crayon on construction paper, a big black car, a man standing next to it, a little girl in red boots, the right way around this time. And at the bottom, in the careful block letters of someone who had been practicing, "Thank you for not forgetting. PAB." He kept it. He put it in the drawer of his desk at the office. Not on the desk, not on the wall, not somewhere that could be seen or commented on, but in the drawer, where he would see it every day when he opened it for something else. His assistant asked him once, months later, what it was. "Something someone made for me," he said. She waited for more. "That's all," he said. It was enough. Pavel asked him about it once, the night of it, on the drive to Thunder Bay, in the dark, with the lake a black absence to the left and the snow coming sideways against the windows. "You didn't have to stop," Pavel said. It was more words than Pavel typically used. Theo recognized that. "No," he said. "Why did you?" He thought about it. He thought about it for a long time, watching the highway unspool in the headlights. "She wasn't crying," he said. Pavel drove. "She should have been," he said. "She had every reason to be. But she wasn't. She was just standing there, trying to figure out which direction she needed to go." He looked out at the dark. "I know that feeling," he said. "I've been standing in that parking lot. I just had different boots on." Pavel said nothing. He was a man who understood when something didn't need a response. They drove. The snow came down. And somewhere 2 hours east, in a house in Greenstone, a little girl with her boots on the right feet fell asleep in her aunt's bed, holding a paper cup she had forgotten to throw away, breathing the slow, even breath of someone who has decided, at least for tonight, that they are safe. Some people choose power because they want to take. Some people choose it because they learned too late that the only thing worse than being the one who decides is being the one who has no choice at all. Theo Kessler knew which one he was. He had known for a long time. He just hadn't known, until a February night on the Trans-Canada, that knowing it might ever be worth something to someone who needed it. If you've ever been that little girl, if you've ever been the one standing in the cold, trying to figure out which direction to go, waiting for someone to just not forget, drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from tonight. And if you want to hear more stories like this one, make sure you're subscribed to Sadie's Romance Library. There are more coming. And this one? This one was just the beginning.